Larry, we've been having some really awesome collaborations lately, doing a lot of work with the citizens' grand juries. How you feeling tonight?
I'm tired. I had to get up at 2 a.m. for a hearing on the East Coast today. It was a deal. I have a client that basically was screwed by an arbitrator, which is another example of our justice system these days, which favors the rich and powerful and the influential. So I was representing her, Jackie Beard Robinson. I wrote about it in my book, It Takes a Revolution, how these arbitration agreements are stacked against the little guy, how these arbitrators are like federal judges, frankly. They're political hacks mostly. So I was fighting on that. But, I was in Florida. I have a good state judge. The state judges are much better than the federal judges. Believe me, they're accountable to the people, as Jefferson said. And because of that, they try to be courteous towards lawyers, and most of them try to do the right thing. But the federal judges, they are a bunch of political hacks by and large.
Now, wait a minute. Is that because state judges are elected in local elections?
That's right. They're accountable to the people. If they do things which are improper, they can lose elections, and they know that. And they also have to behave with respect to the lawyers because, the lawyers donate money to their campaigns. So, it's not the perfect system, but it's a lot better than the appointment in the federal system, which, as I write in my book, It Takes a Revolution, Forget the Scandal Industry. Jefferson said federal judges, unelected, would become despots and tyrants, causing us to shed the blood of patriots yet again every 20 years or so, adding what's a few thousand dead to refresh the tree of liberty. Him not wanting to see people hurt, neither do I, but it's inevitable because that's what's going on right now as the federal judges represent themselves. They even threw President Trump under the bus, and they abandoned him when he wasn't the winner, much like, German society abandoned people who opposed Hitler. And right now, we have no defenses. We have no federal judges that will stand up for us. And that's why, we have citizens' grand juries. The American people are taking their legal system back, and we're going to mete out justice.
Yeah. And people can watch that, Larry, tomorrow at 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern. They can watch it on Crowdsource The Truth 3, or of course they can watch it on the Freedom Watch YouTube channel. We've got a simulcast of this broadcast going right now. Larry, I want to just talk for a minute before we get into all this stuff about medical misinformation. You've got 57,100 subscribers here on Freedom Watch. And everybody knows that when you and I do videos together, they're simulcast on your channel, on my channel. So I have access to see the analytics and the underpinnings of what's going on there on the Freedom Watch YouTube channel. And it's really strange because you and I have known each other maybe about 4 years, 4 years, something like that.
Well, I might add, first of all, your sound is coming through garbled to me. I hope you can hear me well, and I hope the listeners can hear me well.
This ought to improve it.
It's garbled. But 57,000, which was manipulated because we stayed at around 42 for years with YouTube. I had to sue Google. That was part of the case with Laura Loomer. We talked about that in the last session. All of a sudden, it went to 57 because the Supreme Court was about ready to make a decision whether to accept our antitrust case against big tech. So that was a manipulation.
But wait, let's elaborate on that detail. Let me pause a second, Larry. I want to elaborate. Because you were alleging that they were suppressing your views. I observed you were at something like 43,200 for well over a year. And then when the case came up, it shot up from 43,000 to 57,000 overnight, and now it's frozen there.
But here's the irony. 57,000 is pittance, okay, compared to what I do. I've been a lawyer for 44 years. I founded Judicial Watch. I did things like enjoin the National Security Agency. Frankly, I'm the only lawyer in this country that'll really stick his neck out. And 57,000 is nothing, even with that increase.
Correct.
So, I should be in the hundreds and hundreds of thousands. You've got porn stars that have a lot more than I've got, on the internet.
Well, that's a separate debate, Larry.
I'm not sure that my taking off my clothes is going to help things, but that's
might not help.
Neither here nor there.
I do think it's important that we remind people that if they support what we're doing here and they support Freedom Watch and the citizens' grand juries, it's critically important that people donate. Freedom Watch is a 501c3, so people's financial contributions are tax deductible, and anyone who donates $50 or more is going to get a free copy of the book, a gift copy of the book. It Takes a Revolution, Forget the Scandal Industry. But let's talk for a minute, Larry, about what's been happening with this Johnson & Johnson vaccine. It's on pause here in the United States of America. We've heard other reports from other countries that there's similar concerns with other vaccines. The thing that troubles me about it is, if we had spoken about this last week, I would get a strike, and I've gotten strikes for medical misinformation. The main Jason Goodman channel is no longer available on YouTube, in part because of these medical misinformation strikes. What do we make of this now that Fauci is saying that the Johnson & Johnson thing is on pause? What are the legal implications?
Well, they've been dehorred. You know, there's a word in Italian. I speak Italian as well as French and English sometimes. It's called sputanare, to dehore, okay? And you know, this information came out. It's been suppressed. Fauci suppressed it. The government suppressed it. The Trump administration suppressed it. The Biden administration suppressed it. And anybody with any degree of common sense would know that when you come to market, and I used to represent the FDA in drug cases, both as a prosecutor, as a defense lawyer, that when you develop something that quickly, without any, you know, lengthy criminal trials, not criminal, I mean clinical trials, ironic word use of words, criminal.
Right.
When you do that, there's going to be issues. There's going to be problems. This is an extremely dangerous situation where people are being forced, in effect, and brainwashed into getting these vaccines, when we also know, most recently, that Pfizer had to come clean, and they admitted that it will only last maybe 6 months maximum. I doubt it'll be that. They obviously are not going to understate it. They're making trillions of dollars. A study in Israel shows that the Pfizer vaccine won't cover the mutant forms, that you're still vulnerable to that. And then you got J&J, where women are developing blood clots in their brain, and God knows what else is going to show up. You know, as a way of an analogy, you know, years ago, my family was in the meat industry. My father, my grandfather, and my uncle, and I took an interest in it. And I was participating in the U.S. Export Federation, trying to export beef into Europe. Europe wouldn't accept our beef because we had hormones in it. And why wouldn't they do it? In fact, our beef was not harmful, but the entire country of Belgium was poisoned, and there's going to be large incidence of cancer based upon a hormone that was being used to raise beef in Belgium. You know, the Belgians love steak, you know. So, you know, this is the kind of thing that years later, if you're a younger person, it could show up. And we don't know the long-term effects of these vaccines. And as it currently stands, I'm not getting it, but, you know, I considered it, but I'm not getting it. My doctor even recommended it. I told him I'm not doing it. And he's a great doctor because, you know, we just don't know. And now we find out it won't last that long, number one. Number two, it doesn't cover the mutant forms. Number three, there are very serious side effects. And we don't know the full extent of the damage that could be caused by this. We may poison, you know, for lack of a better word, our entire population with this stuff. And my client, Judy Mikovits, you know, warned everybody of this. She worked with Fauci at the in Fort Detrick, Maryland. That's where we study viruses and also, frankly, create bioweapons, just like the Chinese did at Wuhan. And it's no coincidence, and Judy knows, that Fauci sent over the seeds of the SARS virus to Wuhan to do research because legally we couldn't do it here. And Obama appropriated $3.7 million. I've been talking about this for a year. And, you know, Fitton's going around crowing now at Judicial Watch that they uncovered this. I mean, it's absurd. Yeah. We know this. It's been out there. And every time she's going on TV, she's been cut off, you know, censored, vilified.
Well, every time she's on Crowdsource The Truth, I'm getting a medical misinformation strike, and the videos are getting removed.
She's been proven to be right, and so has her partner, Kent Heckenlively, who wrote the book, Plague of Corruption, you know, and others. And, you know, this is what we're dealing with here. Unless you have a pre-existing condition, I'm not a doctor, and I'm not giving medical advice, but unless you have a pre-existing condition, you know, and you're in a weakened state, I would think twice about getting these vaccines.
Well, I mean, you know, I agree with you, but basically the fact that we're talking about this is likely to cause this channel to get a strike. So the thing I want to ask you, Larry, and
well, I have a response to that, Jason. Okay, begins with an F and ends with a U. Okay, is it and this is not. That's why I have a subgroup of Freedom Watch called Freedom United. Okay, FU. Okay, because we are free to speak in this country. We're free to speak, and that's why I wrote my book. It Takes a Revolution. I can't tell you how many defamation cases I filed just in the last week. Okay, because these leftist reporters, are on my case and on my client's case, and I'm not going to turn the other cheek. So, you can blame me for what's going on, but make my day, YouTube. Make my day, big tech. I'll take you where the sun don't shine.
Oh boy. Okay. So I might have to create Crowdsource The Truth 4. But the question I wanted to ask, Larry, is that if it's now shown that even Fauci is saying that there are enough questions about some of these vaccines that they're being advised, like openly advised, to pause or to stop giving them to people, does this create an opportunity for me to go back and say, hey, YouTube, you gave me a medical misinformation strike, but here it seems our information was correct?
Well, you should go back there, and I'll help you do it pro bono if necessary. And you've been defamed yourself on a routine basis. I mean, Crowdsource The Truth. They have no right to keep this information from the American people. And tomorrow in our citizens' grand jury, we'll be presenting preliminary findings for an indictment against Joe Biden for letting these immigrants, these illegal immigrants, into this country, infecting the American people with COVID-19, with these variants and these mutant forms. And on top of that, he's spewing misinformation about these vaccines and, lip service with regard to China. I'm madder than hell, Jason, that both the Trump administration and Biden, okay, let's put them all in the same pot here. All they do is make statements that mean nothing, the Democrats and the Republicans, about China. These people, the communist Chinese, and the Chinese are a good people, okay? But the communist Chinese leadership, the butchers of Beijing, have destroyed this country, and I believe they had intentionally did it. And they also, the Western world, they brought us to our knees. And what does our government do? They don't even give us the correct information on vaccines, let alone take any action against China. I've got class action lawsuits in Dallas, Texas, and in Jerusalem, Israel, with my Israeli colleagues, to make the Chinese pay for this. Now, whether I'll ever succeed remains to be seen, given the way judges are, the federal judges in particular. But I'm trying at least. And what have these clowns on Capitol Hill done? Tom Cotton goes on Hannity nearly every night, just spews forth bullshit to the American people. Excuse the language. Does nothing. Now he wants to run for president. You can run for president of the SPCA, because he's not doing anything, and neither any of the other Republicans or Democrats, as China destroys us. And then they can't even give the American people honest information about these so-called vaccines.
The real problem for me, Larry, is there is a certain point in a period of discovery where we don't know what the answer is. Everyone's doing their best to be honest and bring forward information, but when they eliminate the possibility of debate, when they don't even allow people to hear Dr. Mikovits or Dr. Scott Jensen or any of these medical doctors or PhDs or microbiologists who have spoken out with alternative points of view, they stifle that debate, and it absolutely crushes our ability to learn anything and to get to the facts.
And just yesterday, Governor Ron DeSantis in Florida did a symposium with very respected doctors and scientists from Stanford and Harvard, who were talking about why it's very harmful to have kids masked all day long. Okay, they develop speech problems and other kinds of problems, and why kids are not really that susceptible to this virus. And what happened to him? They pulled him off YouTube. Okay, they banned him, just like they did Laura Loomer, governor of Florida, because he happens to be a Republican, because he happens to be probably the number one person who people think are going to run for president in 2024. Okay.
So, but now we have a situation, Larry, where corporations control our access to potential future leaders, and they could sink. I mean, Laura should be in Congress right now, basically making these laws and
it's
schooling them.
yes, it's a total effort by the left. So they've seized control of the entire country. I wrote a column a couple of weeks ago called Harris Biden or Biden Harris, whichever way you want to put it, and the Fourth Reich. You know, every aspect of society, whether it's sports leagues, whether it's labor unions, whether it's universities, whether it's corporations like Coca-Cola and Delta, are throwing their lot with these leftists that now control the country because they can scratch their backs, much like Hitler scratched the backs of Mercedes, BMW, Deutsche Bank that financed the concentration camps. Then you've got our Gestapo, the FBI, and I'm sure the agents don't like to do what they've been ordered to do, which is to go out and round up anybody who protested in Washington, D.C. on January 6th. And it's a full court press, and that's an understatement of what's going on right now. And the American people need to rise up, which is why I wrote my book. And I have peaceful and legal means that I'm suggesting. But if that does not succeed, all hell's going to break loose eventually. And then you've got white people, okay, the white people who are cowards, okay, who, you know, let this racist ideology of the left brand them as racists from birth. And they're putting their heads down and they're letting, you know, radicals that are manipulating blacks, and most blacks are not this way. They're not. The most courageous people in this country are the black conservatives. They're much more conservative, courageous than anybody else. But they're letting this whole race thing completely engulf this country. And white people now are second-class citizens. And we, you know, as not you and not me, but they're putting their heads in the sand thinking, well, this is going to go away. It's just a passing problem. It's not a passing problem. It wasn't a passing problem when the African National Congress took over South Africa. They destroyed that country, even though I was against apartheid, and so was everybody else. But it was taken over by communists. They destroyed South Africa. Whites fled from South Africa. They went to Florida. They went to Australia. They went to other places. And that's happening here as we speak. People are leaving this country.
Well, let me ask you something along those lines, because it just came out today that the U.S. Capitol Police officer who shot Ashley Babbitt, the Air Force veteran who was allegedly shot on January 6th, we don't even know this guy's identity. Ashley Babbitt was not trying to fight him or escape or wrestle a gun from him or resist arrest. She was just coming through a window. If he had sprayed her with pepper spray or tased her, she would have been incapacitated. We hear all these other stories about people who have, gun criminal records of gun violations and multiple warrants for their arrest. And when they start to struggle and fight with the police and somebody gets shot, in this most recent case, the acting chief of police said it was accidental. Suddenly they want this cop to go to jail. But Larry, when doctors and police officers make mistakes on the job, people can die. If this guy wasn't resisting arrest, she would have had no need to do anything other than cuff him and take him down and process him.
Well, she's a dead woman walking right now. I mean, she'll get convicted. Derek Chauvin, he'll get convicted. If the jury doesn't convict him, they'll get killed, you know, when they walk down the streets. This is where we are right now. And, you know, it's time. And I don't want to sound like, you know, some Dave Chappelle skit, you know, the white supremacist, because people will call me that because I simply believe in equal rights for everybody. That's what they do. They did it to Laura Loomer. They do it to everybody. But the reality is, if you're a white person in this country right now, you're a second-class citizen. You're born with a racist gene, and you have to pay the price day in and day out. And, you know, this simply cannot continue. Whites need to rise up, and they need to defend themselves and stop being cowards, which is what they've been.
And aren't we running the risk, Larry? I mean, just the fact that this has happened, that this officer was arrested, she's been, I'm trying to find the article, I just saw it a moment ago, but she's been arrested, and doesn't this automatically just give pause to any police officer who, I mean, we're creating an environment where, you know, you can reach for a gun inside your car and you can struggle with the cops, you can take their taser and shoot them, and then if the cops defend themselves and arrest you, which is what we want them all to do, is protect us from criminals, they're subject to arrest. This is going to motivate police officers to just not do anything.
Here's the bottom line, okay? And, you know, a month or so ago, I was just checking something out on Google. I was trying to get statistics on the incidence of black crime, violent crime versus white violent crime. You can't really find it on Google. You can't find it in the internet, but we all know that there's a much higher incidence of black violent crime than white violent crime. And
Well,
to
how
the
do we know
extent
that?
it's stopped, and there are tragedies that occur, it's because, frankly, the cops are afraid they're going to get killed if they seek to make an arrest, you know. And I can tell you, because I had police in my family. My brother's no longer a policeman in Philadelphia, but you know, he would say, look, you know, we're just not going to get involved. You know, let them do what they're going to do, and we'll clean up the mess afterwards. You know, we're not going to get involved. That's
absolutely what the NYPD does.
They'll
So this is a 26-year veteran of the police force who, she made a mistake, and people are criticizing her, saying, how can you be a police officer for 20 years and make a mistake? The point of the matter is, every single person, no matter how long they've been doing their job, sometimes might make mistakes. And when you're a doctor or a police officer or an airline pilot, these types of jobs, military, mistakes cost people's lives. And that doesn't, I'm not trying to say that we give everybody a pass.
In the military, how many people die in accidents in training? Okay, it doesn't justify it. It doesn't justify her negligence. Okay, hold her accountable civilly for what happened, but it's apparent, you know, she didn't do it intentionally. So there's no intent. There is no crime. I mean, there can be negligent homicide for sure, but this woman's going to be lynched. Okay, she'll be lynched, and she'll never be able to set foot in public.
I mean, Larry, if you're in a tense situation...
She'll never be able to set foot in public again.
No. Her life is ruined. But who would want to become a police officer now? The crime situation is becoming so dangerous in the United States.
Well, that's why I formed with Sheriff Joe Arpaio, America's Sheriff. You can see that at americassheriff.org, to defend police officers, because we need police officers. Now we have Rashida Tlaib, the domestic terrorist connected Rashida Tlaib, who gets her funding much from terrorist related organizations, who hates Jews, who hates Christians, who hates whites, saying, let's do away with the police. We don't need police. We don't need incarceration. Of course you don't. Why would somebody who's tied to terrorism need any of those things? Okay. And then Laura Loomer, you know, our friend and colleague and my client, you know, simply asked her questions when she was running for Congress. You know, what's her views on Israel, and Tlaib assaults her. So yeah, we're going to be refiling that case. A cowardly federal judge said he didn't have jurisdiction, go to state court. So we're going to be filing it again. Okay, we're still within the statute of limitations in state court in Minneapolis. Of course, good luck in Minneapolis.
Let me ask you this about Tlaib's latest statements here. We've got a sitting member of Congress who's calling for no prison, no police officers. They also want people to not have their Second Amendment rights to protect themselves. So what could she possibly have in mind other than criminals running rampant, shooting and killing, stealing whatever they want, breaking into people's houses? How the hell could she possibly be thinking clearly? And is
well
this
documented?
An impetus to remove her from Congress, Larry? Can she be removed over something like this?
Well, yes, she could be. But on the other hand, it won't happen because just like blacks versus whites, Muslims are a protected species in this country right now. I mean, racism around every corner if you question what they do. Now, Rashida Tlaib, it's not in dispute, okay, has ties to terrorist organizations. And CARE, you know, is one of them that gets funded, you know, from terrorists. And this is another thing. You've got our FBI director blaming everything that happened on January 6th on white domestic terrorists, looking the other way from criminals, you know, of various minority groups. Now, most of the people in these minority groups are good people, but there are radicals, and these radicals have taken control of the country, and they're the activists. They're the ones that generate the votes for Biden and Harris. They're the ones that got Biden and Harris elected through fraud and other means. So they're paying them back.
This video is definitely getting blocked.
Well, I'll represent you, Jason, okay? You know, we're entitled to say what we believe, and that's me, and it's not you, okay? So take it out on me. Make my day. Make my day.
We've got a really dangerous situation brewing with all of this anti-police sentiment, the George Floyd Derek Chauvin trial happening right now. We happen to disagree, Larry. I think that Chauvin is going to be acquitted because I think the whole entire thing is a charade. We've got Benjamin Crump involved there again, and I think it's a charade designed to ignite a race war in the United States. We saw it start last summer, and I think now it's going to be kicked into high gear.
Well, wait. You know, Jason, I usually agree with you, but you're dealing here with jurors, okay? Are you saying that they got to every single juror?
No,
that they paid off every single juror?
I'm saying that the witnesses for the prosecution have been a disaster. They've shown lots of evidence that shows that he ate all this fentanyl, and his friend who was with him in the car is like taking the fifth and afraid he's going to be arrested and all this. I just think that this is going to happen. I'm not saying they got to the jurors. I think that.
Well, here's the bottom line, okay? You may be right, except for one point. If these jurors acquit, they're dead men and dead women, okay? They will be shot down in the streets of Minneapolis or wherever it's taking place. They're dead.
Yeah.
Okay? That's not going to happen. They're not going to, no more than the Supreme Court was going to stick its neck out for Trump. I mean, that's the way it works. And, so consequently, I hate to say that I'm always right because I don't want to always be right, but I'm always right. Okay. I mean, as I predicted, no one would ever be held accountable, even during the Trump years, at the high level of government. Nobody. This entire country is corrupt top to bottom. It's worse than when we were in 1776. That's why I wrote my book. As I've said many times, King George III was not a socialist. He was not a communist. He was not an atheist. He was not a member of a radical group, and what we've got today are these radicals that are in control of this country. They'll never give it up again. And unless we do something, and I suggest peacefully and legally in my book, let's try that. There are others in this country, not me, who are going to light flames, and this country will go up in smoke. And it's headed that way now. And that's why whites are fleeing this country in droves. I've got friends that have left for Italy, for other places. I'm not leaving. I'll stay here and fight to the very end.
Wow. Well, people can tune in tomorrow, Larry, at 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern to the Citizens Grand Jury. This is going to be our fourth hearing, and people can watch that on Freedom Watch, the Freedom Watch YouTube channel, or on Crowdsource The Truth 3. Let me just ask you, from a legal standpoint, why is it that in the case of this most recent shooting and all of these police shootings, we seem to know the police officer's name right away? They're convicted in the court of public opinion before we ever even hear all the facts. We've even seen instances of district attorneys saying things that don't comport with the facts. There was a guy shot at a Wendy's in Atlanta. They hadn't even finished the investigation. But in the case of Ashley Babbitt being shot, they're guarding the name of the U.S. Capitol police officer who did the shooting. Why is that? What legal justification do they have for that?
Well, there's no legal justification. It's part of the dynamic of what's resulted in this country that Jefferson predicted. Okay, we become highly corrupt, and again, I am a civil rights lawyer. I represented the African American people that were anthraxed when no one else would do it, at the post office. Okay, after 9/11. Okay, I represented Demetric Penny, a valiant police officer, who sued Farrakhan and Black Lives Matter and the rest of them in Dallas, Texas. It was a Trump judge that dismissed that case. It's in my book, Texas Revolution, as well as a Clinton judge that did it. We don't have a justice system. So these people can get away with this. And, white people and other people are putting their heads in the sand saying it's going to go away. Jefferson and Washington, our founding fathers, two of our greatest founding fathers, would have been millionaires even with inflation in today's world. They didn't have to risk their fortunes and their lives and pledge their sacred honor to fight the Brits. We were fat and happy. The colonies were rich. Yeah, we were overtaxed. Yeah, they took our justice system away. But initially, there were many people that said, okay, we're doing really well here. Why do we want to rock the boat with the king, with the monarchy? And then even after we created a country, people like Hamilton said, why don't we go back to a limited monarchy because it wasn't working too well. But our great founding fathers knew that future generations will be living under a dictatorship. It would just get worse and worse and worse. So this is a message to those people that are out there that think that they're doing something by listening to the successor to Rush Limbaugh or turning on Hannity every night, and being entertained. These people are not patriots. If you're a patriot, you will do something. You will rise up for your kids and your grandkids and future generations. If you are in retirement, think about what your kids are going to live with if you don't do something. And now you've got the time. So join what I'm doing at freedomwatchusa.org. Enlist in our citizens' armies, participate in our citizens' grand juries, participate in our Third Continental Congress, where we're going to meet to decide whether to begin a new government, to abolish the current government and move on, because it's totally corrupt. Democrats and Republicans are flip sides of the same coin when it comes to dishonesty and corruption. And that's getting back to what's happening with these vaccines, because it suited the needs of these politicians to say, I've got a cure. Okay. And as far as the drug companies are concerned, they're making trillions of dollars. They're not going to admit that these products are potentially dangerous. They're not going to admit it. And it's starting to come out now. And those people who took the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, and Johnson & Johnson has a terrible record, when it comes to product liability, talcum powder, you name it. Okay, it's not one of the most reputable of companies, and they have a profit motive. When I was a young lawyer, my very first case, I was a lawyer with a law firm in Miami, was over the drug Bendectin and Actifed. A woman by the name of McDeesey in Orlando took it, the Bendectin, and my firm represented Actifed. Yeah, she took it together, gave birth to a child with Down syndrome with birth defects. We later learned that Merck hid that this was the pregnancy drug to eliminate nausea, and morning sickness. They hid the fact that they knew that it would cause birth defects. It's not unusual. It's not. It's money. Money talks. Nobody walks. So for the government to get
regular, sorry to interrupt, but isn't it a pretty regular occurrence
say,
that,
okay, just keep taking all this stuff?
Sorry, we got a little delay on the call here because of internet slowness, but I just wanted to ask, isn't it a pretty regular occurrence that these large pharmaceutical companies will use actuaries to determine the likely settlement costs versus the profitability, and they make a risk assessment of whether or not they should release a drug knowing that a certain number of people will be hurt by it?
I'll tell you another drug that is very dangerous, Levaquin. I'm sure many people out there have taken it. I represented clients that had Levaquin. We brought a lawsuit, and Richard Leon, the judge that enjoyed the NSA, didn't feel like dealing with it. I guess he went into senior status and dismissed that case. It's not even in my book. In the reissue, I'll put it in there. The FDA admitted that it killed thousands and thousands of people and is highly dangerous. But the FDA helped the company cover it up. And this is Washington, D.C. The people who work for the FDA at the high level, they leave eventually. They join big law firms, or they join lobbying organizations, or they join the drug companies. It's a revolving door. So they're not going to push too hard because they want to become rich someday in the future by leaving the FDA after they've got the experience and get a job in so-called private industry. That is Washington, D.C. That's why it's much worse than the swamp. It's much worse than a cesspool. It's corrupt to the core. And then layer that on top of the fact that we don't have justice in our courts to address this stuff. We don't. Yeah. Not anymore, we don't.
Now look at this, Larry. The Washington Post in 1994 had an article that was talking about the abrupt cutoff of FDA Halcyon probes suggests a cover-up. I don't even think they would pretend to run a story like this these days.
We broke up a little bit, Jason. I didn't hear what they covered up.
This is an article from 1994 in the Washington Post that's reporting on an alleged FDA cover-up. I'm just saying I can't imagine in 2021 the Washington Post doing anything like this.
Well, occasionally it slips through. Okay. But
Yeah.
look at the movie by Matthew McConaughey over HIV. Okay. I forgot the name of it.
Dallas Buyers
But
Club.
yeah, the Buyers Club. I mean, it's a true story. I mean, the
Yeah.
FDA would not allow for alternative treatments that were very relatively simple that would have helped gay people and others that got HIV because the drug companies wanted to take control. They were in bed with finding the so-called cure, and the cure was relatively not cure, but it would certainly have helped people with HIV at the time. That's why people leave the country for medical treatment frequently. Look, I'm not saying that everything that the pharmaceutical companies does is bad. I mean, obviously, you know, I take pharmaceutical drugs for various things, for blood pressure, for other things. But given the way the country is, I guess my blood pressure, I'll be taking more pills. But the reality is that they hide things and they cover things up. And you just don't go out there, you know, as our politicians have done, including Trump, okay, and say, okay, you know, don't worry about it. Just take it. It's the greatest thing since sliced bread. You don't say that to American people. You let them make their own decision. They make their own choice, lay all the facts on the table. If you want to take a risk, that's your right to take the risk, just like it's your right to smoke, as long as you don't bother other people smoking. But, you know, it's not right to withhold information. And everybody knew that what's going on with J&J, Johnson & Johnson, and Pfizer, and the others right now, they knew that in the back of their minds that this was such a new drug. It's experimental. It's never been approved by the FDA. It got provisional approval. Trump bragged about that. You know, we don't have a long clinical history with it. So yeah, if you want to take it, fine. But you're assuming the risk. And you should have a right not to have it rammed down your throat. And right now, it's a brainwashing on TV. I mean, I turn the TV on and it says, take it, it's safe, take it, don't worry about it. You know, that's fraud. To tell people that nothing's safe.
Yeah.
Tell them the truth.
Well, we've got this Business Insider article here that's telling us that Sweden, Germany, France, and 15 other countries suspended AstraZeneca's vaccine over possible side effects. So in our discussions with doctors and others about possible side effects and questions about the vaccine, you know, I've taken quite a lot of heat from YouTube and been eliminated now from the main channel. It's amazing. Well, I wonder if Germany and Sweden and all these other countries will be deleted from social media for questioning the safety of these vaccines.
Well, and I'll tell you something. You know, I love the state of Israel. I'm a Zionist. People don't like me to say that, particularly at your station. Is that you know, I'm an American first, but if Israel ever needed me, I would fight for them as well, because I think our history is tied and our future is tied. But I'll tell you something. What Netanyahu is doing over there in the government is
terrible.
I mean, he's ramming this stuff, Pfizer down. I understand from my colleagues over there that people are dying, they have serious side effects. And if you're an Israeli, you can't go into a store or anything unless you have the so-called passport. And my colleagues over there, and I joined in it, we filed a case in The Hague under the Nuremberg Convention. It's a violation of human rights to force people to. And Israel's at the forefront of doing that.
It's really bizarre. I mean, particularly this whole tracking and tracing thing. I mean, people obviously are aware that in Germany, Jewish people were forced to wear yellow stars to be identified on the street. And now Israel, a country ostensibly created to give the Jewish people a home free from that type of oppression, is the first country to force everybody to identify themselves as vaccinated or not vaccinated. Aren't we creating a kind of a second-class society where we're really in danger of those who choose not to be vaccinated?
You know, look, I understand the motivation in Israel. You know, it's a very small country with very few people. So if everybody got COVID, you know, the country would grind to a halt. The problem is they ground it to a halt anyway, you know, because nobody could do anything for almost a year in Israel. They were basically under house arrest. And now they violated human rights. And there's a better way to do it. And, you know, I take my hat off. I hope he doesn't run as a Republican. Maybe he'll join the party I'm going to start, the American New Independence Party. Is that Ron DeSantis is doing the right thing in Florida. And what happens to him? He gets banned from YouTube just by having Harvard and Stanford scientists talk about how you deal with kids. You know, the left is evil. It is evil. it's inhabited by the devil. They want to destroy everybody. I mean, they've been trying to get me. The DC bar is disciplinary apparatus is evil. They're dishonest. They're corrupt. They're in bed with the left. Even communists sitting on bar committees concerning me, Michael Tiger, communist, proud communist, fired by William Brennan for his communist ties with Castro. Just wrote a book, Mythologies of State and Local Power, where he extols the virtues of Marx with endorsements from Bernardine Dohrn, a convicted domestic terrorist, and Angela Davis, the famous communist from Berkeley, University of California, Berkeley. This is a guy they put on a bar committee to judge me. Okay.
It's unbelievable.
Corrupt people. And I'm not turning the other cheek. I'm not turning the other cheek. I'm going right after them. I got 6 lawsuits against them right now. They're despicable, evil people, and the judges protect them.
Well, I want to hold on this for a second, Larry, because for people who don't understand what we're talking about, this is Michael Tiger here with Raul Castro. And to write a book and have it be endorsed by Bernardine Dohrn and the other people that you're talking about, this is essentially like if somebody wrote a book and it was endorsed by Osama bin Laden. It's shocking that he would put that in there.
Yeah, and you know who his son is? He got mad at a bar proceeding hearing where I was there, where I explained why I started Judicial Watch. I said, we don't get the best and brightest on the bench. They get there, as I wrote in my book, It Takes a Revolution, because of campaign contributions and other gratuities, sometimes out and out bribes. He took an offense and he said, I beg your pardon, my son's a federal judge in Oakland, California, in the Bay Area. And I said, Your Honor, I wasn't trying to insult your son. Well, who was that son? John Tiger, the guy who enjoined Trump with his immigration policies over asylum. Okay, like father, like son. And walk into the University of California at Berkeley Law School, Bolt Hall. There's a big picture of John Tiger there, right in, and Michael Tiger went to Berkeley too. So, wow. These are the people that are in control of this country right now, and they're trying to eliminate conservative lawyers, not just like me, but whether it's Rudy Giuliani or whether it's former Attorney General Bill Barr. Why they're bothering with him, I don't know. He never did anything anyway. But all 4 bar presidents in the history of the District of Columbia Bar filed a bar complaint against him, and then they publicize it. They're trying to disbar Kellyanne Conway for remarks she made on MSNBC, Ted Cruz, Josh Hawley. They want to eliminate the ability of conservatives to defend themselves and to defend the vision of our founding fathers. They want to destroy everything in terms of opposition. And the FBI has turned into a Gestapo by Biden and Harris. And this is clown that runs it, Christopher Wray, who says that really the big problem are white domestic terrorists.
Ridiculous statement, but this is the reason, Larry, why it's so important for people to visit freedomwatchusa.org and to financially contribute to what you and your staff are doing over there. There's no other way for this stuff to move forward, and both Freedom Watch and Crowdsource The Truth rely on viewer sponsorship. So and Larry, there's a real sense of a quickening right now in terms of the types of stuff that you and I have been speaking about for the past 3 or 4 years. They're happening. It's not like some distant off in the future. People can dismiss it as whatever. This is happening.
Yeah, people better wake up. What was that movie, Moonstruck, with Cher and who was the actor, great actor, I forget.
Nicolas Cage.
Yeah, she slaps him, he's in love with her and says, snap out of it, American people need to snap out of it. I mean, it's like, I use this analogy a lot. They're sitting on the deck of the Titanic listening to music, and the ship of state is about ready to hit the bottom of the sea. And, if you think that this is going to go away, particularly if you're kids and grandkids, then you are derelict. You're not a patriot. You're not. And you have Larry, to rise up. It was Thomas Paine who said, these are the times that try men's souls, in his pamphlets leading up to the revolution. It's not the time for sunshine patriots and summer soldiers. We have to dedicate ourselves and take risks. And our founding fathers summoned the divine providence of God to wage a revolution against all odds, and we won. And we had a country for 244 years, 45 years at this point. We don't have a country anymore. It's been taken away from us. It's
You're
gone.
Right. You're right. And I mean, the thing that's bizarre, Larry, right now we have so many social engineers in the comments here. I think one thing that's good about it is that the audience has become educated in identifying these people and their efforts are becoming futile. But what type of person, given the circumstances of the country right now, I mean, maybe you don't like me, you don't like Larry, you don't want to participate, but it's just so insane that people are in here, fake names, impersonating guests. It's terrible.
Well, it is because, it was John Adams who said, doesn't matter how many times you change your rulers or forms of government, without ethics, morality, and religion, you will not have lasting liberty. And that's true. And the ethics and morality of this country have hit rock bottom. You see it in every aspect of society, particularly in the media, the fake news media. They just lie through their teeth. And I have friends who were never really very political and they weren't conservative. And they are just disgusted and appalled. And, the ethical fiber of this country has reached rock bottom. And, that's why I wrote, this is back in 2009, I wrote Whores, Why and How I Came to Fight the Establishment. And my book, It Takes a Revolution, Forget the Scandal Industry. I'm going to update it because there's a lot that's going on as well. Go ahead and read that one because it basically says everything that needs to be said. And, we have no justice system. The legal profession is the most corrupt profession in the United States, comprised of judges and lawyers, primarily federal judges and lawyers. Shakespeare said, let's kill all the lawyers. Okay. He didn't mean actually kill them, but it was, a way to make the point. Who is occupying most of Capitol Hill? Lawyers. They can't tell the truth if their life depended on it. The old joke, why doesn't a shark attack a lawyer? Professional
courtesy.
Yeah, professional courtesy. My profession is rock bottom. It's disgusting, top to bottom. And that's why I started Judicial Watch in 1994. I became the anti-lawyer. And people resent, judges resent it, and other lawyers resent it, but I'm not backing down. And lawyers are not even supposed to talk badly about the profession, but how can you not talk badly about this profession?
Yeah.
When we have
let me share a positive message with you, Larry. Eric Gomez has read your book. He says it's great. So that's a good review from a viewer right there.
Thank you.
And I also want to point out, for a long time, Larry, you came on the show and you were telling us about problems that you were aware of with the people that took over Judicial Watch, and specifically Tom Fitton. And it wasn't until very recently when Charles Ortel began investigating the finances of the American Conservative Union that it's been discovered that there's a lot of evidence to indicate that there's financial fraud going on there. And Charles has put some very hard questions towards Tom Fitton, Matt Schlapp, and the others. And I want people watching us to know, Larry, that your perceptions and your interpretation of the situation have been vindicated by the evidence that Charles is finding. So there's still a lot of people who are conservatives, who consider themselves on the right, who submit to this identity politics. They see somebody on television and they like the way they look, they like the things that they say. Even with Patrick Byrne, who assaulted me in Las Vegas over the weekend, people say, oh, he's a nice guy. Why are you attacking him? I just asked the guy a question that was a very relevant question about why this whole team that's surrounding Mike Lindell is insistent on injecting what is absolutely faulty evidence provided by Dennis Montgomery into this mess. And none of them want to answer that question. They just want to disparage, defame, and assault me.
Yeah. Well, I can't talk about Montgomery because regrettably I represented him at one time. So I'm not going to get into that. But I will say this is that, my criticism of Fitton and Judicial Watch is because they sell things, smoke and mirrors, okay, is that documents, they're fine, but use the documents to actually do something, okay? Just don't crow about how great you are on Fox News. Secondly, Fitton's filed 2 bar complaints against me. He's not a lawyer. In fact, he lied to me when I hired him. He says graduated from George Washington, hadn't even done that. So he's always resented the fact that I'm a lawyer. He feels competitive, and that's cost me a lot of time and money dealing with it. And one of them dealt with a situation where when I left Judicial Watch, he abandoned Peter Paul, who had the goods on Hillary Clinton. We agreed to represent him. And they abandoned Peter, and in large part he did 10 years in prison as a result, and he was ready to put the finger on the Clintons. He also, the money that was raised for a building was never spent on a building. It's now 18 years later, $1.5 million not spent, and a lot of these donors are now dead. And then an office manager in Miami that was harassed that he wouldn't deal with and rectify that, Sandy Kobus, who I was very close with, like my sister, and she later became my chief of staff when I ran for the U.S. Senate. This is what they are all about. They're not honest people. Okay, they're not honest people. And, because Fox News wants the documents, they put them on. And people think, oh, it's great, and they've done very well at marketing in recent years. Their net worth is well over 200 million right now. If you look at their 990s, they're doing extremely well. So people don't understand that, where's the beef? Where is the beef? And you have to take risks. It's not enough just to mostly get documents. So, we've done that, been there, done that. And the difference between Fitton and me, who's not a lawyer, is that, he'll go on and say, okay, here's what we found. Government, do it. Okay. No, the government's not going to do it.
Right.
The government's not going to do it. The people have to do it right now.
Yeah.
We have to rise up. We have to face the facts of life. We have no government. We have no justice system. So that's the reason for the citizens' grand jury. So I want people to watch, see what we're doing. We have the right to do it. Justice Scalia said the grand jury belongs to the American people, not the three branches of government. What did we do before 1870? We had a Justice Department. The American people meted out justice themselves. And we're trying to do it peacefully and legally, and we're trying to be fair about it. And we presented a lot of evidence. You can see all of the 3 prior grand jury sessions up on our website at freedomwatchusa.org and Crowdsource The Truth. See how we're doing it. Tony Bobulinski came forward, who was working with Hunter Biden, and said Joe Biden was getting a 10% cut of millions of dollars, if not billions, that were being laundered into the coffers of the Biden family. This isn't Larry Klayman saying that. Peter Schweitzer wrote a book, Secret Empires. Here. Profiles in Corruption. Here. Peter is a very good investigative journalist. Now, unfortunately, he's scared like everybody else. I asked him if he wanted to come in person. Didn't hear back. Okay, that's what I'm talking about.
Well, he might be busy.
We can't be cowards. Okay, we cannot be cowards. But his book is good. It's viable in terms of getting an indictment. You don't even have to have evidence for indictment. But we have documented it 25 different ways that Biden is perhaps the biggest criminal in American history. May even surpass the Clintons. May even surpass them.
Unbelievable. And Larry, I want our audience to take notice at the incredible concentration of social engineers' fake accounts. There's a reason they're there. It's because you're effective. Crowdsource The Truth is effective. They're trying to stamp out Crowdsource The Truth. They're trying to remove Larry Klayman from the legal profession. And the fact that you and I persist, I think, irritates them. And I'm happy to be an irritant to these types of people.
You judge yourself by your enemies. If you don't have enemies, you're not effective. I mean, if people, leave you alone, particularly the left, which is vicious, they're Bolsheviks. The left wants us dead. Let's be honest about it. If they could kill us all, they would. And it may come to that. And it's time for others to push back. They want us dead.
Yeah. Well, I think it's very important that people visit freedomwatchusa.org, support Larry and his legal team at Freedom Watch, and make sure that you tune in tomorrow at 8 a.m. to the Citizens Grand Jury. You can see it on Freedom Watch on the YouTube channel. You can watch the past 3 episodes right here on freedomwatch.org. And don't forget that if you make a tax-deductible contribution of $50 or more, you're going to get Larry's book, Forget the Scandal. It Takes a Revolution. Forget the Scandal Industry. We've got a viewer on Crowdsource The Truth who's given it a great review today. So I think people who are interested in what we talk about, Larry, are going to want to hear this.
Came from my heart. I didn't write it. I didn't write it for money. I've made a dime so far, but people are reading it. I mean, it's out there and they're sharing it, and you can get it in audio, on Amazon.com and Barnes and Noble. You can get it in Kindle. Read it, okay? Because I go through actual experiences that I've had in 44 years in the legal profession. It's not made up, okay? And thank God I had a publisher that would let me publish it. I give Post Hill a lot of credit for that. Yeah. They are patriotic. But I mean, here's the thing, Jason. If we, the American people, don't rise up now, this country is going to be forever lost to us. And now is the time to do it. If we don't do it now, it's gone. It's already gone. It's already gone. The question is, can we resurrect it? Can we bring it back to life? Because when you see situations where, you know, white cops are prosecuted, but blacks that commit crimes all of a sudden become heroes, you know, the George Floyd Act or whatever the case may be, or Trayvon Martin, okay, who was not the person that he was portrayed to be with phony pictures of him being a little kid. He wasn't any little kid, you know, and that was cooked. You know, you go right down the line, and these race baiters, these vigilantes, these con men like Al Sharpton, like Louis Farrakhan, he's worse than that. He's a Nazi, neo-Nazi. You know, Black Lives Matter. The head of Black Lives Matter now has millions of dollar homes all over the place. Okay, that's reported this week in various countries and in the United States. This is an industry, and you know, white people and others who believe in the vision of our founding fathers need to rise up and say, I'm not going to take it anymore. I'm not going to roll over. I'm not going to give in to this. I'm not going to let these people destroy the country and destroy my family, because soon they're going to be on your lawn asking for the keys to your house and your car and all your possessions. If you don't give it to them, they'll kill you.
Yeah, I don't think they ask. They just come and take it. So I want to remind everybody, Larry, tomorrow, 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern, it's going to be the fourth hearing in the new series of citizens' grand juries that we've been doing. This is such an important process because, first of all, it's educating the public as to how these grand juries work, what they are able to do. It's putting together a body of legal documents, affidavits, evidence, etc., that we are going to continue to utilize in an effort to try to bring these people to justice. And I think it's important for people to tune in. I think it's very important for people to support what you're doing on Freedom Watch and to purchase the book. I know you've had a very busy day, and I appreciate you taking the time to be with us tonight.
And also support you, Jason, because you are one of the truly courageous people in this country. You're my friend. You know, I admire you as much as you admire me, and we're a very, very good team because there aren't many people who will stick their neck out anymore. There are very few, but I hope that we get people to join us, just like the founding fathers got the colonies to join them, even though they were doing very well at the time. They knew what was going to happen into the future, that it would be a dictatorship if they didn't rise up against the king. And now we must rise up against someone, Biden, who's even worse than King George III.
Absolutely. Larry, thank you for those kind words. The feelings are mutual, as you know. Thank you, everybody, for watching tonight, and thanks to all the generous sponsors that make this show possible. I really appreciate the people who are sticking with me in this difficult time where we're struggling through some platform issues. Don't forget to subscribe to Crowdsource The Truth 3 on YouTube and Freedom Watch on YouTube. We'll see everybody tomorrow at 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern. Larry, have a great night. Thanks for watching.